Thanks for joining us on Shannons Club TV, where we explore the heritage of cars on Australian roads and racetracks.
If you're not yet a Shannons Club member, you can sign up free on the website, where you can also read the full road and race histories of many other vehicles.
And coming up, we'll take a road trip with a proud owner of our feature car and get the latest market updates from the Shannons auctions team. Right now though, the small British Ford that relied on a big dose of Aussie content to make it as successful in the showroom as it was in competition. The Escort Mark I.
When the original Escort arrived in 1968, the Ford product range could hardly be compared with that of even a decade earlier. Its predecessor, the 1959 Anglia 105E, had shrugged off the blandness of earlier small Fords and made a name for itself not just as a nippy economy car, but also as a British hot rodder's favourite. But while the Anglia was still utterly English, its Escort successor was the first European Ford to emerge from the company's total performance philosophy of the mid-60s. Here was arguably the sharpest styled small car ever seen up to that time. Its body was beautifully proportioned and appealing even before you got to the GT and the inspired twin cam, which applied the Lotus Cortina formula to an even lighter car. The Anglia was a small car available with different levels of trim, but the Escort was a whole model range, from shopping trolley to Bathurst contender to rally champion. It was a new style of aspirational small car, utterly different from anything available in the 1950s. It was a smaller Capri. Interestingly, although the Escort was released in Europe before the Capri, the two hot new Fords arrived locally in reverse order, meaning the Mustang-influenced Capri prepared Australia for the Escort. And with the GTHO in the headlines, why not apply Subaru decals to the Escort 1300 GT? Mark, in 1970, going Ford was indeed the going thing.
It sure was, and that a central part of that marketing theme was success in motorsport. And the Mark I really is a perfect example of a big car company like Ford taking motorsport success to polish and promote a bread and butter model.
And they did it so well.
I know. I mean, we didn't even have the RS Escorts on sale in showrooms here. No. But the overriding message was the Escort's winning. So if you buy one, you're driving home a winner, and that is a really powerful marketing.
The 1300 GT had the Subaru.
It trickled right down.
1.3 litres, and so everyone who bought one of those, it's just like having a Falcon GTHO.
Exactly, it trickled right down the range, and it was very successful.
Yeah. The Escort was assembled in Australia. Early examples suffered from poor build quality, but as local content was ramped up to 85%, there were big advances. Escorts sold on looks, drivability, handling and value. The gear change was brilliant back when 4 on the floor was a new catchphrase. Imagine a modern equivalent to the Escort, light, compact and rear-wheel drive. Like the Mini before it, the sporting successes of the Hero variants rubbed off on the entry-level model, despite its underpowered 1.1 litre engine. But unlike the Mini, the Escort had bigger and equally charismatic siblings. How fortunate, Mark, that Holden invented the Tirana GTR and XU1. Otherwise, with Capri V6 and Escort twin cam, Ford had the local small capacity sports sedan market covered.
Yeah, they sure did. And like the Capri V6, the mighty little Mark I went out and proved how good it was with a spectacular competition career. When a hot twin cam model was revealed only 2 months after the all-new Escort's UK launch in 1968, Ford's sporting intentions were clear. What followed was a series of brilliant competition-bred Escorts that would take the motorsport world by storm. The twin cam was developed in remarkably short time by Ford UK's Advanced Vehicle Operations, or AVO, at Boreham in Essex, and immediately proved a winner in local and international racing and rallying. More high-performance Escorts were developed under Ford's Rally Sport, or RS banner, and sold through a network of specialist Ford dealerships in Britain and Europe. Now, these included the RS 1600, released in 1970, with a Cosworth-designed 1.6 litre dual overhead cam 16-valve engine, and in 1973, the RS 2000, powered by Ford's larger 2 litre single overhead cam Pinto 4. John, although Ford did sell the twin-cam Escort in Australia, we didn't get the really hot RS models that they had in Europe. Now, I guess that was just a case of not being able to put up a sound business case, based on volume.
I think that phrase, sound business case, especially when used in conjunction with Ford Australia, would be the troublesome issue. They wouldn't have known how many likely customers there'd be for such a car, and it would have been a big risk to take it without having done all the research and so on. So I guess we've missed out on a lot of specialist cars over the years like those.
Well, that was effectively, they were homologation specials, weren't they?
They
those
were,
cars?
they were, yeah. And we're lucky we got the twin cam.
Yeah, we were.
Don't you wish you had one now?
I sure do, on reflection. Australia was well represented in the Mark I's global motorsport success, with Aussie international Frank Gardner winning the 1968 British Saloon Car Championship in a hot Group 5 RS 1600 for Alan Mann Racing. Cosworth-powered Escorts were also winners in Australia in the 1970s, with Ford hero Alan Moffat punting a very quick ex-Alan Mann Mark I in local sports sedan events, along with South Australian John Bassett, Melbourne car dealer Gary Rogers, Sydney's speed shop owner Phil Ward, and many more. Mike Stillwell also came close to repeating Frank Gardner's giant killing efforts in the UK after scoring a string of 2-litre class wins in a very quick twin cam in the 1972 Australian Touring Car Championship. The twin cam and RS 2000 models also enjoyed great success in Group C touring car racing, with Bob Holden winning multiple 2-litre titles using both cars. And in 1978, Rod Stevens took a clean sweep of the 2-litre division in both the ATCC and at Bathurst before toppling the V8s to win the Manufacturers' Championship for Ford, rounding out the Mark I's amazing competition career in fine style. You can read many other great road and race stories on the Shannons Club website.
My name is Joseph Jones, and this is my pride and joy. It's a 1972 Ford Escort twin cam. It's fitted with a Lotus engine. It was put through as a rally car, but unfortunately never hit the track, and went back to Ford and was sold off. The specs of this motor is a 1600. It's a double overhead cam Lotus engine. Originally built for the Lotus Elan, putting it into this car made it a perfect power to weight ratio rally car. It exceeded the Mark II Cortina until such time as Ford introduced their own VDA. One of the unique parts of this car is a stone deflector which sits underneath the rear end of the car. I've noticed that the bolts that actually hold that in are actually tapered off to a point. These are Australian ones, because the English ones have a flat head. These are tapered off to a point. Favourite feature of this car, mate, to me, is the drivability of it and the colour. I just love that colour. It's unique to Australia. This car is pretty rare. There's 800 of these built in Australia. You'll probably find there's only between 5 and maybe 10 left in Australia. So as a unique and very rare car, well, this is it. I put it on car sales just out of curiosity. A guy in New South Wales asked me basically what I wanted for it. I told him. He said, would you take 70? I said yes. And it's going to go to a museum in Gosford, New South Wales and never be driven again. I know it's unfortunate for me because I love driving it, but I think that's where it deserves to be because it is a precious, precious car.
Shannons National Auctions Manager Chris Borrabon joins us to talk about the mighty Escort Mark I. Welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, Mark, all right.
Chris, how are you going? I can't remember the last time I saw a Mark Escort on the road. I was thinking about it. It's probably years. Do you get many coming through insurance quotes, and do you sell many at your auctions?
We don't see enough coming through the auction house. I'd actually like to see a few more come through, I think. I mean, we do see a few come through for revaluation from an insurance perspective. But I think a lot of them are changing hands amongst the club and, through the nose. So, let's bring out some more through the auction. That'd be great.
I mean, they're a very rare car on the road, but in the club scene, there's a lot that have been modified, used in competition, that sort of thing. I guess it's pretty hard now to find an original sort of showroom style example.
It's getting increasingly hard. I mean, they're an iconic car, the Mark I, and
Great looking car.
Yeah, and they've been very popular, obviously, for rallies and for the classic scene.
Yeah.
And we have, as you mentioned, a lot of them have been modified, and it seems to be very accepted in the scene out there. To find the original and the modified cars, and
Sort of like the Datsun 1600 approach, isn't it?
exactly.
I'm thinking like the Datsun 1600. It's the okay thing to do them up. I mean, you wouldn't get many of the 1100 shopping trolleys. You'd get more the 1300 GTs and the twin cams coming to the auctions, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's why I think you'd be looking for to try and find those original cars.
And Mark, do you remember the panel van, the Escort panel van? Sort of a scale model thing.
Yes, I remember lots of young P-platers driving around in the Escort vans. Do you see many of those now?
No, we don't. It's hard to know what's happened to those. I mean, most of them really, have they gone to be crushed or, so if you do find that original panel van, windows or windowless panel van, well, hold on to it.
And do you think values are on the up?
I think we have seen that. We have seen the appreciation for them, and we have seen the values go up on those Mark I's. So I think whether that's obviously the coupes, the sedans, or the panel vans.
Or the panel van.
I think if you find a really good original example, grab it and hold on to it, and
So Chris, what advice would you give to an enthusiast looking for an Escort? And would it be possible perhaps to get hold of one of the ex-race cars?
Look, I think the race cars are, impossible to come by these days, and I'd say, we probably have lost some of those cars back to the UK over the years. But I think the local delivered twin cams are increasingly hard to find and very desirable. So if we can get hold of those,
let me know when you get one.
Yeah,
and there's also some unique Australian models. You had the GS, you had the GT. I mean, these are really rare cars.
With the Subaru details on
rare
it,
cars.
like a little mini Falcon GT. Fantastic.
Yeah. So 1300 GT, extremely hard to find again today. So if you find a good car, original condition, jump on it.
Grab
really.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for the advice, Chris. And keep in mind, you can keep up to date with all the latest Shannons Auctions news on the Shannons Club website. If you'd like your own competition image of the Ford Escort Mark I, check out autopics.com.au. Ford Escort Mark I, hugely significant car for the Ford Motor Company when you look back at it, isn't it?
I think hindsight is helping me with this one, Mark, because as I remember, and I'm old enough to have been there, at the time there wasn't all that much excitement about the Escort, but I think in fact in a few respects it was ahead of its time because it did bring that kind of big car glamour, the Coke bottle hip,
the Coke bottle hip,
and the really beautiful proportions to the small car market. And with the great sporting success of the top line sporting models and trading on the whole Subaru thing, I think that really made it a car that we now see as a great classic of its time.
And that's the sort of marketing edge Ford Motor Company needed at the time because we were under attack from a Japanese invasion, as they called it. All these Japanese cars coming in the 1960s, and Ford left. How do we face this?
The Japanese were coming to get us, and they already had the Datsun 1600. So.
Hugely successful, weren't they?
Yes, it was a landmark car and arguably ahead of its time, I think.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed looking back at the car Ford called the Little Ripper, the Ford Escort Mark I. We look forward to your company next time on Shannons Club TV. Bye for now.